Thank you very much. I just thought I'd bring you quickly up to date with some of the issues that we have confronted during the course of the week, and we, even up to today, are addressing. This is not to replace the daily briefing that you will get from some of our leaders who we've assigned to speak to the media about the activities during the course of the day. I just wanted to highlight a few issues and to remind Guyanese and our supporters and APNU supporters alike as to why we are here pursuing a recount of the votes that were cast at the elections on March 2nd. You would recall that APNU claimed they won the elections. They tried to have a swearing ceremony 3 times. They wanted elections declared on the basis of Mingo's false declaration. And it was the PPP that went to the court because of the one contention that Region 4 declaration departed from the norm that was done in the 9 other regions. First of all, the 9 other regions used their statements of poll to create a spreadsheet in the presence of all the representatives of the political parties and observers, and then they totaled up and made the declaration. And there was no dispute about the results in the 9 regions. In Region 4, Mr. Mingo went through that process, and he got through about 425 of the 879 polling places. He had used the statements of poll, and then suddenly stopped that exercise, and the spreadsheet with inflated numbers appeared, and on that basis, he declared the results. So we went to court to block the declaration made on the basis of the fraudulent result. And every international organization here, local, well, the international organizations, first of all, observers, the embassies, etc., as well as local observers and civil society, said that the results were not credible. And so now the key point of the recount was to prove whether Region 4 declaration by Mingo was credible and accurate. And I think by now the entire country would recognize that Mingo's declaration was fraudulent and cannot be the basis for you to declare the results, the overall results of the March 2nd elections. That has been proven already. So APNU is creating a smokescreen. You'd recall Alexander on a program recently said, we're past the Mingo recount, the declaration. We're now focused on the recount. He doesn't want to go back to Mingo's declaration, although Basil Williams and Patterson are still arguing that the false declaration should be the basis for declaring the results of the elections. But you see Alexander, he says, oh, we can't deal with that now, we're dealing with the recount. And you would notice the narrative, the entire narrative of the APNU AFC camp. Not a word about Mingo's declaration. So they're building a new smokescreen to divert our attention from the key issue as to why the recount took place. That was to determine whether Mingo's declaration was accurate or not. And by now, we all know it's fraudulent. So this smokescreen consists of claims of dead people voting and people who migrated voting and irregularities and all of everything else. Just to keep our attention away from the key issue. Well, we have to keep people's attention on that matter because that's the key issue here. And we believe that once this recount is completed, then the results would reveal in Region 4 the true figures, and overall that the PPP won the elections. So what have we discovered so far? You have been given the statistics earlier in the week that in just 87 boxes of the 192 boxes on the East Bank Demerara, we have had Mingo inflating APNU's vote by 4,495 and decreasing votes for the PPP by 758. So that gives you a total of 5,253 votes that is fraudulently declared by Mingo in favor of APNU, with just 87, using just 87 examples from the 192 boxes on the East Bank. APNU doesn't say a word about this. GCOM doesn't want to release Mingo's declaration because they can easily release it. They don't want to. And Justice Singh, if she insists on giving credence or paying attention to all of I noticed she said, he who alleges must prove, and we agree with that. But if they continue to give credence to all of these fake allegations by APNU, then they must also release Mingo's declaration, and this in a disaggregated form, so that the entire country would see what was really fraudulent. But people like Basil Williams and Patterson and Cathy Hughes and Harmon and Norton or the others, they're mortally afraid of that. So Vincent Alexander argues, oh, we don't need to release that. That's in the past. That's in the past. As they didn't want to release the SOPs from GCOM, although they're public documents, because those would have proven that the PPP won the elections, or they would have had to tamper with them, and that the tampering would have been revealed. So this is quite clear. We have demonstrated, I think, not just the PPP, but all the small political parties as well as civil society and the media has already demonstrated through their own investigations that Mingo's declaration was fraudulent. That point was proven, and that was the key issue at contention here. So the second point was whether the PPP had put up fake SOPs, because at one time they would not release their SOPs, but has been arguing that the PPP has put up fake SOPs. We put up those SOPs since March. Now you can easily go to that website. I think it's region4sops.com. Please go there, and you will see the 879 SOPs for Region 4. We have not counted, we just counted over 200 of the 879. So they can't accuse us of putting it after the count has been done. They're all up there now. And in that, we published all, and then we gave a total figure for the region. And we then separated out in the SOPs by sub-areas in Region 4. East Bank, East Coast, South Georgetown, and North Georgetown. So on the East Bank now, let me tell you what, if you go to the website, you will see that the SOPs have APNU at 21,624 votes for the East Bank, and the PPP at 22,200 355 votes. So the recount now of the East Bank, because most of the boxes excepting 2 are recounted, but 4 have not been tabulated as yet. So the tabulated figures so far for 88 of the 92 boxes is 21,245 for APNU and 22,011 for the PPP. So assuming you take the 4 other SOPs that are available, and on those 4 SOPs, APNU has 330 votes and PPP 381. And you add those to the 188 already tabulated. Then that will give you a figure for APNU of 21,575 votes. It meant that they had on the SOPs 21,624 votes. So they lost 49 votes. This is for overall East Bank. And PPP had on the SOP, 22,355 is now 22,392, gain 37. But forget the loss and the gain, that's minor. It matches exactly the SOPs we have put up and that are on the website. If you go to region4sops.com, you will see the figure there. And if you look at the tabulation so far, it matches almost exactly what our SOPs say. Now, Mingo on the East Bank, he, from what we gather, with the 87 boxes alone, would have inflated the figure not by 5,200, but nearly by 8,000 votes. So you would see that it's clear as daylight, the pattern is emerging. And once this happens, the recount is completed for the rest of Region 4 and the rest of the country, you will see that the recount figure will match exactly the SOPs that have been issued to political parties on the night of the elections. So even if you stop now with the declarations already made or with the recount done, APNU can't win the elections if they calculate on the basis of this, leaving out the inflated amounts from North, Georgetown, South Georgetown, and East Coast. And on the East Coast, now I want to tell you this because we have had, so people understand that the night when I mentioned the 425 of the 879 ballot boxes were tabulated on the basis of the SOPs, and then they shut down the exercise. So that meant 454 were not tabulated on the basis of SOPs. I want to give you a breakdown. On East Bank, they had 192 total ballot boxes. 40 were verified by SOPs. 152 were not. They were unverified. And of that, the 87, we have the 87 boxes that were inflated. And these are just examples. South Georgetown, of the 215 boxes, 192 were tabulated using the SOPs, 23 unverified. And North Georgetown, 167 boxes, 146 verified, 21 were unverified. And East Coast, Demerara, 305 boxes, 47 were verified, 258 unverified. So gives you a total of 454 boxes that would be unverified. So we're going to see, and we've already started looking from our numbers, a heavy inflation of the votes once you get to the East Coast. Start counting the East Coast ballots. Heavy inflation. because that's when you get to the boxes that were put on the spreadsheet and not used, the SOPs were not used in the tabulation process. Now we're still going back to look at whether some of those that were considered verified, for which we received the spreadsheet, whether those have been inflated too. So we're not leaving anything to chance. And by the end of this whole exercise, you will see that APNU won Region 4, but not by the margin. They inflated the ballots by over 20-something thousand votes. And this is a combination of inflation and reduction of the People's Progressive Party's vote. I want to assure you we're doing, the 87 boxes are not definitive. They're just examples of the inflation. And we are doing all the analyses. We're watching everything carefully. We're watching the boxes. We have some audios. We have videos where GCOM could make this easy for everyone by releasing this spreadsheet, but they will never do that because that will show Mingo's fraudulent declaration. So the same way they are turning a blind eye, that is what we find a bit duplicitous about GCOM, that they're turning a blind eye to two big illegalities that could even be, or an illegality that could easily be proven by documents that they have in their possession, which is the SOPs and Mingo's declaration, refusing to make that public, yet giving some minor credence to all these wild, unverified allegations from APNU. And we're paying keen attention to these issues. I had promised not to burden people with the small issues that we keep working through every single day. Because we have a team of people working, and all day long you have to be on the phone or trying to talk to someone, because issues that were settled 2 weeks ago, APNU keep reopening these issues. And all day long, they want to misapply the instructions that have been given right at the beginning of the exercise and been developed through the last few weeks of recount. They just want these changed. And so it's an ongoing battle. And Justice Singh must not, and the Commission must not pander to APNU. We see a great deal of bending over backwards to accommodate APNU, even when their issues have been clarified and been applied, and then, or when it's illegal. Let me give you an example just to point out to you what we have to deal with, this APNU's daily assault and the Commission entertaining this. So you recall that we were pressing for all the issues that are confronted in the recount by the supervisors, the staff of GCOM, and the party agents, that these issues be placed in one document and shared with everyone so that they know what the Commission's decisions are on various issues. For example, what time the containers would be open, up to what time they will remain open, issues like how you treat unstamped ballots, etc. So on the 14th of May, 2020, Excellence Dazel, who is the legal officer of GCOM, prepared a document outlining the Commission's positions on all of these issues. They call it a basket of issues. And they had to deal with this issue about how to treat ballots that are partially stamped and they have no stamp on them. So this is what the commission decided and documented and sent to all the workstations on the 14th of May. It says under the heading non-stamping of ballots. 1, if there is any trace of a stamp, any number of digits, stamped twice or barely legible, it is a valid vote. 2, if there is not a stamp, it is invalid, unless there is some indication about the stamp missing or faulty recorded in the poll book. This is quite clear. This instruction was consistent with how they treated the count on election day based on instructions from the CEO. So you can, if you treated it that way on election day, this was the direction to the presiding officers and the counting agents, etc., then you can change it now. And because it meant that the people who, that you're changing the rules of the game. Secondly, this is illegal. The law specifically prohibits this. It says if there is no official mark, then the ballot is invalid. That is clear as daylight. The commission made that. So now the APNU wants this changed. Now they want the commission to go back on what was decided since the 14th of May, since the beginning of the exercise, documented on the 14th of May, being applied all along. They want that changed now, and something that is prohibited by the Representation of Peoples Act. So you recall when in the late 2000s, when APNU had agreed with us to use the ID card for people to vote. And immediately after the elections, they challenged the elections on the basis of the ID card was not necessary for people to vote. And Claudette Singh vitiated the election and we lost part of our term. She annulled the elections on that basis, the use of the. Again, they want an illegality done here. So this is largely because a couple days ago, I saw in the Kaichor News on May 23rd, I think today, Coalition objects to ballot box not yet recounted, right? And in that, it speaks about Sophia, and they had objected to the ballot box before it is recounted. The objection was made. But it says our agent found 61 unstamped ballots right in that box in Sophia. So they now want to change this because they may be 61 unstamped ballots in Sophia. We don't know who these people voted for. And then they added in some red herring about military vote not being stamped. You can't match voters with a ballot. But they want that changed now. So suddenly they've gone back to the commission to argue to change what was decided on, what was applied all along, and to change it because they believe they'll get some 61 ballots more, votes more in Sophia. And that's why they're fighting for that change. Well, part of Sophia. But let me give you an example. At Division 414112C, ballot box 4383, Plindora Nursery School. On election day, the APNU, on the SOP, APNU got 9 votes, the PPP 31 votes, and 107 of the PPP votes was rejected for want of an official mark. So 107 votes were rejected because they were not stamped at that station, yet we lived with the results because that was the ruling. But now APNU saw that probably they can get 6 to 1 more. I'm not sure all are for them and whether this is accurate, but they want the rules changed again. So I'm giving you an example of this to make the point that it's a daily struggle by APNU to grasp at straws, and the commission keeps entertaining them. And Justice Singh and the others must not do that what APNU wants or that is illegal, and what they've already decided on, because it would be unfair for all those ballot boxes that are being treated in one way based on this rule change now. If they succeed, the others will be treated differently. There has to be uniformity. And so I gave you this just to give you an example of what we're confronted on a daily basis with, and that we don't burden the populace with, but it's a major, major battle within GCOM and within the counting stations. And APNU keeps putting up all sorts of issues. So let me say this to a lot of people. They've been making wild allegations, and I'll deal with some of them in a moment. But a lot of the things that they are doing, as you have seen, are illegal, totally illegal. And I want the APNU agents who take instructions from the riggers in Congress, please, to understand that those who commit the act, because they're committing the act, the riggers, the bigwigs, are not putting themselves out there. They're busy planning their exit. They're changing a lot of money at cambios now. I've got some information. Some contracts are being even issued now, advances being paid, etc. They're planning their exit. They've seen the writing on the wall. They've started talking about power sharing. Why do you think they are saying that? Because they know what the results are. Why do you think they're now trying to discredit the elections after claiming they won? They know what the results are. They're sending their agents to the counting places, and it is those agents, when the government changes, who are going to get into trouble, because a group of independent lawyers contacted me, and they said to me they're forming a team to file criminal charges against all of those people. And it is the ones whose names are in the counting stations, who are making the false allegations, etc., who will be charged, because they're criminal offenses for what they're doing. So false allegation, I'm told it's a criminal offense under several pieces of legislation. And you've seen already disclosure of a person's death certificate without the next of kin knowing is also a criminal offense. Not that we have any trouble with disclosing these death certificates, but it must come from the kin or must come from an official source, not APNU often fabricating it. And many of them have been discredited already. I've seen them issue a couple of death certificates for people who died but never voted because their names are not ticked off on the list. And secondly, and that is, whether their names are ticked off or not, it doesn't mean that they voted, because the list is not the definitive issue. A person can make an error. For example, in one box you had 4 lists. The presiding officer list, the party agents, they all have their own list. The presiding officer took back all the lists and put them in one box. Each of the lists had a different number of voters ticked off. So which one you're going to use? But clearly, these people are maliciously and criminally making allegations that are false, and widespread allegations too. And so we will encourage this group and we will support them, because this must not go unnoticed, or the people must not go unpunished for attempting to spread falsehood, mislead people. And this is mainly, they can't mislead the rest of the country. Mislead people who listen to the Chronicle or the NCN or DPI or Chronicle, and some of their supporters. Mislead them into believing they're being cheated when they lost the elections, and misleading and sending the sacrificial lambs, all of these who are now agents there, who will face the trouble. Not a single one of the senior leaders will appear when they're in trouble, or get lawyers for them, or go to court for them, because they're all making these false allegations. But the good thing about it is that the media has been exposing a lot of these issues. You know, it's like it's comic, totally comic to listen, a comedy to listen to some of these people. Like Cathy Yu said, I think we're missing the real issue, is whether or not those documents, death certificates, etc., are valid, legitimate, or not. This is where we want to call on GCOM itself and even the PPP to check whether the death certificates that we are producing, the conversation needs to be, if these documents are found to be true, if these persons have voted and they're dead, what it says about the process. You notice how many ifs in there? It means that they themselves are just on a fishing expedition, just overloading the system with a lot of fake death certificates and false allegations about people migrating, and then hoping that they'd stir up enough trouble, and we must now go to disprove that. All of this is done to take away the attention from Mingo and from the fake declarations that he made, and that the PPP won the elections. Aubrey Norton said, I don't know that there can be a certification of any results at this stage. We have a number of questions that we have raised, and we believe they have to be revisited before we can talk about anything like a certification. Well, thankfully, the certification doesn't depend on Aubrey Norton. It is, 2 regions have already been certified. They signed on one, and they didn't sign on the other. But if APNU chooses not to sign, it doesn't prevent the declaration from being made and the certification done. They can choose not to sign it. But you know, they were busy signing the Mingo's declaration. Both Carol Joseph signed the second one, and that was just a cover because Valda Lawrence got caught with her finger in the cookie jar when she signed the first declaration that Mingo made, which was fraudulent and that didn't require any party agent to sign. So whether they sign the certification document or not, that doesn't determine whether the results are certified. I see Royce Dale Ford, I've been monitoring from time to time, seem to place the responsibility to prevent such unlawful and fraudulent activities only on the side of the APNU and AFC agents. Well, it's not true, because first of all, APNU had 2,300 and something agents in all those polling places, and they signed on to every one of the statements of poll. We have their names. They never reported any fraud. They're throwing their own agents under the bus. Secondly, GCOM had its staff that GCOM hired and trained. And thirdly, the PPP had its agents too. And how is it that when they were talking about winning the elections, they didn't have all of these issues to raise? Basil Williams, recon does not alter the previous 10 declarations made. It's It's a ton of nonsense that we see every single day. And as I said before, there has to be consequences. On the cybercrime law, etc., that they passed, a lot of them who are posting, making these fraudulent posts, etc., a lot of them will have to face consequences. Again, APNU puts out these things every day. Every ballot, every box, and every region must be counted. And that's what we are doing. And then they're trying to block it, slow it down. And irregularities in Region 4, it says the Region 4 has irregularities in 12% of the ballot boxes for Region 4. But now word about Mingo's fake declaration. How can you treat anything that they say as being credible? I saw the allegation that a woman, her mom voted, who died since 2015, in Region 2. That was disputed. There are tons of people who are disputing this now based on what APNU has put out. You saw another report, Coalition objects. Just listen to the headlines and it would tell you how desperate they are. Coalition objects to ballot boxes not yet recounted. Coalition says 18 persons who voted for APNU AFC at Belladrum were out of the country. And it speaks for itself. APNU AFC Craig doubles down on false migration voter information. Coalition admits party has no evidence for claims of foreign voters. MyPol admits coalition using hearsay to make objections and has no evidence. Couple coalition claimed was out of country was present and voted on elections day, and they said they voted for APNU. Norton claims ignorance about coalition's false allegations against Berbice couple. This Aubrey Norton, he talks about joint government. They talk about joint government. And you think anybody would want to sit in the same government, like with some of these guys who are making such patently false allegations and just throwing the country in turmoil. There's no gracefulness about this group in defeat, no acceptance of that they've lost the elections. They just want to start trouble so to secure a place in a future government. And they must be misreading the People's Progressive Party by now. We can't be bullied. We can be reasoned into issues, but we can't be bullied into anything. We will not stand for that. Your history would testify to that. So if they believe that this approach is endearing them to the leadership of the People's Progressive Party, when they talk about joint governance, then they're very, very wrong. So we're not going to be bullied into anything. Look, Aubrey Norton makes false claim about Bush lot ballot box. He says 199 electors are there and in that box, and the PPP got 109 votes and APNU 4. So that's 203 persons voted when you only had 99 electors. The newspapers did a check. I see the newspapers, and they found that there are 257 eligible voters. A blatant lie, but they keep repeating this on TV. It's on all of their documents. This is the sort of lies. I don't want to burden you because you've been reading this all week, but it just tells you about the desperate state that they're in. Totally desperate. Bunch of lies. The only place they find favorable media in is Chronicle and the Kaichor, not the Kaichor, the NCN. All the other independent newspapers, people who have a modicum of credibility, have been pointing out that they lost the elections and there's evidence of fraud, not on the part of anyone else but APNU and Mingo. And by the way, the media should go on a search for Mingo. They should go on a search for Mingo. I've been calling for that quite a while. So this is where we are now. I am very concerned about what's going on with the COVID task force. Again, definitively now it seems they have denied entry to the observers. Um, the task force, I'm very concerned about what's happening in the country because not only are we bleeding in an economic sense, bleeding jobs, people don't have food to eat, etc. Their prospects at a better future is every day becoming more elusive. Businesses are collapsing, etc. But we don't have any leadership. There is no government really now. We have to fix this quickly because they have these de facto ministers, but they must have seen by now that they lost the elections. And then the task force keeps saying, like last week I saw a press release that the issue of the gradual opening up of the economy had been discussed, but they reached no agreement. Now, Trinidad has decided how it will do so. Most countries in the world, because you can't stay in lockdown mode forever. One would have hoped that the period that we're in the lockdown, they would have used that opportunity to better deal with our capacity for handling more cases. Should, when we reopen, those cases escalate a bit, and until people get the immunity or they find a vaccine or something else, that they would have been focusing on the building capacity for that to handle more cases. But nothing has been done. The corrupt hospital is still finding its way. I spoke with people from Moruca this morning. They said, oh, the shed that they said is the quarantine facility is still overgrown with bush. And they already have a case there. No leadership. And then on the opening itself of the economy, they have not outlined a protocol for how that will happen. So what is the reaction of the population? A couple days ago, I drove around Georgetown, and it seemed as though people are just getting tired of it. And that's the last thing you want, that people come out on their own without the state establishing guidelines how they should come out. And so people have just gone back to normal. In most cases, you drive down the streets now and you see busy activities because in the absence of leadership, organized way of coming out so that people can conduct their business, they can go to their jobs, have their employment, buy their food, but still do so in a manner that will avoid the massive spreading of the virus. But we have no leadership whatsoever on this matter. And on the economy, it's even worse. The exchange rate, from somebody told me, for US dollars is 245 or something like that now to one. And the banks still have the old rate, but because they have a restriction from the Ministry of Finance. But for currency, I gather it's escalating. And we don't know where it will end because what plans there are for revenue in the short term, so that we can ride over this without escalating the fiscal deficit too much and putting further pressure on the exchange rate. So these are some very, very troubling issues. The longer we take to settle this matter, it's even worse for all of our people. And I say all of our people because those who voted for APNU also are feeling the squeeze from an inept government and from the undemocratic path that they took us down for the last several months. And their refusal to be graceful in defeat, which could set up a way for collaboration in the future. They want us to end this at each other's throat and confrontation. That is at the senior leadership level, because our people on the ground Thankfully, they've been patient and they will not fall prey to people trying to divide them along ethnic or other grounds. Our people have lived integrated for a long time. Their futures depend on each other, and there's a bright future for all in this country. But we have to maintain the democratic path. And right now, this bunch of hustlers, and they're still hustling now, although they're busy exiting, they're trying for the last set of deals, whilst they're putting out their minions to face all the heat and all the criticism. So Harman and the others will never face a media as to why about the Mingo's declaration. Which leader of the APNU, AFC coalition, will talk to any media person about Mingo's declaration? None of them. Not a single one of them. Although it's very evident as to what happened, that he inflated the votes in their favor. Thank you.